This vlog is examining the skill acquisition process for the back pedal with crossover turn and acceleration drill, including reflections on my personal learning of this drill and the skill acquisition involved, in addition to examining the coaching process and how this can improve my coaching of agility drills in the future. Clearly, I'm a novice and unskilled. I'm focusing too much on the technical aspects and the constraints of the cones to be able to process and react to the cognitive element correctly. This emphasises that in order to be able to have the reactive cognitive component, the athlete must first be skilled at performing the movements, what many refer to as simply change direction speed drills. Whilst it is widely accepted that agility contains a reactive or cognitive component, this process highlighted the importance of agility coaching involving a long-term progressive programme to make these required qualities fit together. Generally in novices, they cannot be achieved in a single training session. I decided to build in these components over time, focusing initially on the many technical aspects I struggled with, deconstructing the drill into its component parts, starting with foot placement and posture in the start position. There should be adequate ankle, hip and knee flexion, so the mass is lowered, stable and ready to backpedal effectively. This was challenging for me. Initially I used a combination of verbal instruction and cues, finding external and neutral cues to be more effective than internal ones, in line with current research. Stay low is a cue I use a lot with youth hockey agility drills, however something I didn't find useful here as I perceived I was much lower than I actually was. It wasn't until I saw how upright I was in the video feedback that I was able to get myself into the required position while repeating stay low and be ready in my head. I also found the technical aspect of the backpedaling challenging. The upright posture improved once the start position was corrected, so I focused my attention to my foot placement and step adjustment. Initially my feet came up too high and I'm too upright, as if I was simply running backwards. To improve neuromuscular coordination as well as technique, I added some simple back pedal drills which were terrible initially, but improved with repetition. Removing the constraint of the cones was easier to start, as I was too focused on where the cones were. Later I added them back in. Useful instructions had mainly an external focus, including pushing the front foot through the ground and kicking the rear foot behind to initiate the movement. However, this made me kick my rear foot up high, so I also mentally repeated skate over the ground to ensure the balls of my feet stayed close to the ground with light feet ready to react. I do correctly brake with the opposite leg rather than stepping under myself. However, I initiate the turn too early, twisting the planted leg so I'm a bit off balance. I should firmly plant the opposite foot, still facing forward, then the turning side leg lifts up and turns with the knee pointing in the direction I wish to travel, opening up the hips. To correct this, I performed some turning drills, focusing on firmly planting the opposite leg, thinking about explosively pushing through the ground of that opposite leg. I found turning to the right easier, so I ensured I practiced both sides equally. These drills ensured I was more stable on the turn and in a better position, ready to accelerate. Initially, during the acceleration component of the drill, I'm not applying sufficient force into the ground and I'm overstriding. To correct this, I performed some drills with the instruction to fall forward, emphasising pushing off through the floor and picking the knee up whilst thinking about driving the active leg down into the ground. However, this created a kind of high knee, so to correct this, I thought about picking the heel up under the bum and small strides while still pushing through the ground. This improved slightly, so I then combined the components of the drill together again. Initially at a reduced speed before attempting maximal effort and before adding the reactive element. This time, when the cognitive element is added, as I'm more skilled, I'm able to execute it more effectively. Once the technical aspects of agility have improved, the physical components such as unilateral leg and glute strength which require work are visible. This process reinforced many of the external cues I use and reminded me of the importance of individualising instructions rather than generic cues. It also reinforced the usefulness of using visual feedback and the importance of using all forms of communication, verbal instruction prior to the task, simple verbs as cues, and also visual and verbal feedback after the task. Also, something I would have benefited from, which has been shown to be useful in many sporting situations, is the use of action observation to aid skill acquisition due to the neurological link between observation and execution. This reminded me not only to use demonstration in my own coaching, but emphasises the importance of being able to appropriately demonstrate these drills. This drill is useful for athletes in invasion sports for both offensive and defensive players. The key is to stay in control, ready to react at all times, something I struggled with. This demonstrated that a strong technical foundation should be developed before adding more complex reactive elements to any agility drill, and that the athlete, their ability and their training history and their sport should be considered, relating the external focus to the game itself, and varying the cognitive element appropriately depending on the sport and its constraints, such as the pitch and playing positions. Thank you.